Okay, hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're talking with Martina Markova, the creator of Lady Alchemy.
Hi, am I on?
Yes, we're on. We're on.
Okay. Yeah, I was just posting to the social medias, make sure we get people jumping in on here. So, yeah, hi. And it's Markota, like the
Oh,
state
Markota.
Dakota.
I said that's a great way to start the interview, mispronouncing your name.
That's okay. People do that all the time. I get Markova because it's like the Slavic sounding
Right,
name.
and that's the autocorrect keeps correcting it every time I type.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah. So I find myself constantly doubting. Did I say it right? Did I? That's not a good way to start by typing your name wrong and saying your name wrong. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't make mistakes. Every
Yeah.
day people post
Same,
corrections for me.
same. I'm known for my typos, so it's kind of
So
funny at this point.
But first off, let me just say thank you for coming. I nervously asked you to come on, and you were so nice about it. So thank you so much. And then I made you wait a couple of weeks, but I just wanted to say I picked up Lady Alchemy. I personally have I had to get this comic because I'm a big comic book fan, obviously, and for years I've had this fascination with alchemy. I'm not claiming I know a lot about it, but I have a fascination. So you just hit two topics that I was like, I got to get this comic. So I'm going to attempt to turn my camera around and let people see the cover of your comic. Oh, as I hit the wrong button. So here we have your comic. Why don't you introduce yourself? I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
That's okay. Whenever people ask me that, I mean, even Tim Pool asked me that, and I'm just kind of like, I'm Martina Markota. I was a performer in New York City, and I called myself Lady Alchemy. That was my stage name. I did like burlesque kind of stuff, New York City nightlife, art scene, various like artistic endeavors, and I got canceled, so that's just kind of my thing. And that's how I kind of came to make the comic book, because I always envisioned being a performer in a city like New York City, like which I consider like Gotham City, running around as Lady Alchemy in costumes. I always felt like it was very superhero, and I have this like whole storyline about like my bloodline and things like that. And I was like, this is a superhero story. So when I got canceled, it was kind of a nice way to get into the comic book scene online and be able to fund this project, because it keeps Lady Alchemy alive, and that means a lot to me.
Okay. So like when you had your show, you performed like in character, and
Yeah.
so you. Okay, all right. I didn't realize that. I thought you had made it up afterwards. Oh, that's kind of cool to know. So did you incorporate like props and you know costumes and everything into your act itself?
Yeah. So I found out that I have this like super rare blood type, and you read the book, so you know about
Yes,
the whole Nephilim thing.
correct. I was going to get into
And
that. Yes.
yeah. And so I was like, wait, what is going on with this blood type? And it has to do with, even procreation. When I have kids, I need like a special shot. And it's happening right now. I
Okay.
got the shot because I'm pregnant, to make
Yep.
sure that my body doesn't attack
Congratulations.
the fetus. Yeah, thank you. So make sure that my body doesn't attack the fetus and kill it. But then I started thinking about Darwin, and I'm like, well, doesn't that make me not as desirable, because it's all about procreation, right? And I was like, no, but I have to be desirable. I've got wide hips, and I've got, big hair, and like I have all these traits that I have to be a prime species. So I started looking things up more and more, and I found stories throughout cultures, Sumerian cultures, everything throughout history. But in particular, I'm a Christian, Catholic. So I found in the Book of Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls and more of these Old Testament stuff, where they talk about these outer worldly beings, aka fallen angel or angels, that procreated this. What is it? The sons of God procreated with the daughters of man, and they created this different kind of race. And that's kind of like the missing link of this
Yeah.
uh, this blood type that like exists among, that's very rare, that exists on this planet among everybody else. And it's very strange thing. They brought these Nephilim, and these brought knowledge of alchemy, and I was like, Oh my God. That's me. They had green eyes. I'm like, that's me.
Okay.
They're giants. And I mean, I'm pretty big. My family's pretty big. So I was just like, this is how I embody this whole concept, and taking real life and being weird and my weird beliefs and kind of turning it into artwork. So for burlesque, I did a lot of like angel costumes. So I have this whole like
Okay, it makes sense.
feathers and angels and things like that.
Yep.
And I performed like an angel.
So in the comic itself, there's a lot of different costumes that Lady
Yes.
Alchemy, or those real costumes based on what.
Those are real costumes. Yeah. If you see my campaign, you can see some of the actual pictures that I sent to the artist of me on stage and the costuming. And then they did such a good job of like both the artist and the colorist of taking what I sent them of real life and then turning it into like the inking and then turning it into the coloring. And it made me really happy. I was like, this is what it was like on stage. It was really exciting to kind of get to
Oh,
relive that.
oh, okay. So let me just ask you this: we, since I'm a John's Long Box, my channel is all about comics. Were you a fan of comics before you made Lady Alchemy, or was Lady Alchemy, your first foray into comics, or your first?
Yeah. So, I mean, I liked comics back in the 90s as when I was young, as far as the artwork goes, the illustrations.
Okay, yeah, the great.
So I
Make
always,
for that.
yeah, I always liked the sexy babes. I really liked, what Witch played. I was really into
Okay,
Fathom. There's this one called Dark Child. I don't hear people talk about that. I don't
yeah,
know if
that
you know
was
about
another
that
image. Yeah.
Gen 13, like all of the sexy babe ones I was like really into. And I remember just like on dial-up internet, like I actually found a CD that I had in storage and I put it in and it was a file of comic book babes. And I was like, oh my God, no way. But I never really got into the stories or like buying them until I made Lady Alchemy. So that kind of got me into more of understanding storylines and
Okay.
writing.
Oh, cool. All right. All right. So
Yeah.
I just wanted let me get back to
Yeah.
the comic itself. Uh, so the title is Mutis Liber. Could you? I already know, but for those, I'm sure people in the audience don't know. Could you tell us what the title actually means?
Sure. It's Latin for the mute book, and it is an actual alchemical text that exists. And fun fact, I actually went to a book fair. I'm calling it the Antiquated Book Fair, or something it's called, in New York City.
Okay.
I saw the Mutus Liber, and they let me hold it and
Oh,
touch
so it's
it.
a real book.
It's a real book
I
from
didn't know that. I
yeah.
told you I like alchemy, but I don't claim to know much about it. I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah, it's a real book. It was written in like 1677 or something. Written, I say, but it's illustrated. So it's called the Mute Book, which
So
means it's a picture book. There's no words really to it except for like the front cover, but or like the intro cover. It's a picture book, which I actually kind of find pretty cool because comic books are kind of like picture books.
yes, yes. So you actually have I was looking for it while you were talking. There's actual page.
Yes.
Is that a reproduction of the actual book?
Yeah, so since it was produced in the 1600s, it's public domain, and I actually got permission from the Library of Congress and to make sure that I'm
I'm trying to
within
find.
my rights to be able to print it in this book. And they said, yeah, sure, send us a copy of it.
Oh, cool. I
But
didn't know.
that's the actual. I got some high res images from this book fair as well. Actually, they had like a link to the high res images, and I was like, I got to put in a few pages of the actual book. I think it'd be kind of a cool little thing.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I didn't know that. I'm just looking at your credits over here. Written by Von Claus and yourself. So did you send him scripts and he fleshed it out, or is this a collaboration?
Yeah, it went back and forth a lot because I am not really a writer, and I especially comic book writer. So I am aware that there's like a professional way to do it, and like I've read scripts before, so but they're more like acting kind of scripts. So I was aware that it's probably written a certain way, and I am not an expert at that. So I had the general outline of what I wanted for this book, and so I sent him kind of my notes, and then he turned it into a story and a script. But then I went back in and reworked it as far as like adding these elements of alchemy to it. So I would
Okay.
research more like, okay, so he created like Vinia as a serpent person, you know, female. And I was like, okay, well, in alchemy, the serpent isn't necessarily bad. So how can I work this and make it make sense for alchemy? Because everything has layers to it. Like there's so many alchemical layers to it. And so I did a lot of research on the serpent and things like that and tried to make it make sense for the book. So I did that a lot where I said, okay, now let's redo this part. And so we went back and forth, back and forth, back and
Right.
forth. He really helped me flesh out a script.
I didn't think of that until you mentioned it, but when you were talking about the alchemy, the Mutus Libre is a picture book. But one of the, you know, my minuscule knowledge of alchemy, I do know that it's a science or craft of images. Like I know, like the snake stands for rebirth.
Yep.
And an egg stands for birth. So I guess it worked. The imagery would work perfectly for comics because comics is a visual medium, you know. And I'm looking at you know this. One of the things I really like is the quality and binding of a comic. This binding is excellent to the point where
you're having a hard time opening.
I'm having a hard time holding it open
without properly bending it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying not to bend it, but you know what? I'll buy another copy. Like this page over here. There's a lot of symbolism and imagery in this one page. Now, when you sent the script to Von Klaus, did you tell him I want like these statues in the background that are kind of angelic with swords, or did the artist come up with this?
It's a good question. I have to look back at my scripts and see.
Okay.
I think Von Klaus did that part. It is very reminiscent of real life. Again, there was a lot of mix of real life in this because at the time where I have this book kind of taking place to represent what was going on in my life, I did have a rooftop apartment in Brooklyn. So I used to go up on that roof all the time and you could see Manhattan in the distance. Yeah. So it was kind of cool to have it like that. Obviously, I didn't live in a building that was that dramatic with those sculptures. But I think Von wrote those in just for the extra dramatic effect. And
I remember years ago, I was working in Manhattan and I was an apprentice. And I was an apprentice electrician, and one of the guys started yelling at me because I was just looking out the window, and he said, "What are you looking at?" And look at that building. We were at somewhere in Wall Street, and we were a little higher so we could look down at the roof. And I said, "Do you see the architecture on top of that building?" I said, "That's a pagan altar." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And now I went from my partner yelling at me to like I'm explaining. I said, "That's an altar of Apollo. Look at that. There's sun symbols, you know, and the lines all confer over here. That's a magic circle." I said, "A lot of these old architects, especially downtown Manhattan, were old Freemasons who created a lot of alchemy symbols in their buildings."
What am I talking about? What is it called? Grand Central Station also has it as well, with all of like, if you look up the moldings of everything, oh my God, there's like olive branches, there's the wheels, the spinning wheels in the sky. Yep. The wheels in the sky keep on turning. You know, that's the alchemical. It's a biblical kind of thing of you know.
They say too, like if on top of the cathedrals of Notre Dame in Spain and Italy, that there's a lot of pagan symbolism on top of the cathedrals because they didn't think that anybody would ever fly over them. And it wasn't until airplanes that people like, look at these, you know, the Freemason architect. Yeah. That's one of the things I became kind of interested in. Was an architect called Nicholas Hawksmoor who supposedly put a lot of alchemical symbols throughout London. He's the one who designed a lot of the.
That's interesting. I'd love to look into that more. Cool.
Yeah, like I said, I'm kind of fascinated by alchemy, but I don't claim to know much about it. One of the things I also really like, and here I am flipping through the book again, and nobody can see it. I gotta. One of the things I really like was the use of color in the comic. Okay, and again, I guess I'm gonna have to bend because the binding in this is wonderful.
I'll send you another one. Don't worry about it.
I'm not but You see, I like, first off, the beautiful sunset, and then I just like green as you're going into the underworld. Now, is this plain or is
Exactly.
this
Yeah, that's
okay?
the subway. And as a,
Uh,
someone that's around this New York area, you know what it's like. Like this
Oh
just
God,
underground is a different vibe, you know?
yeah. I'm so glad I'm not working that I have to take the subways anymore.
I know.
It's getting crazy.
It
And
is
then
getting crazy.
and then this page, I remember the first thing, and the first thing I thought of was like, look at this garish coloring, and I kind of didn't like it. And then I realized what you were going for. She's going to purgatory, and it's like a
It's a
basically
nightclub.
like a den of iniquity. It's like all sin and everything. And then later on, when later Alchemy actually makes her debut, like look at this, it's all red as we're kind of into like hell, you know.
Yeah,
I didn't want to dwell on one of the pages, but
yeah.
but then over here, as everything gets whiter and bluer, as Lady Alchemy debuts as an angel. So I really do like the use of color.
Yeah, thank you. I felt the same way
Excuse me.
where so the colorist, I found him hunting around, and he isn't necessarily a comic book guy.
Okay.
He does a lot of professional magazines and illustrations, like very artistic illustrations and stuff like that. And so I really liked that. And Lady Alchemy, the performer, has a bit of classicness to it, but then there's like that weird edge, like the little bit of weirdness, the avant-garde, is what I really like with my work, my artwork, and aesthetically. So I felt like that's what I needed, a little bit of something weird to it, because the inking was very like spot on, like comic book, but then the coloring added that bit of like edge and that like
Yes.
weirdness to it. And I agree, whenever I got the coloring back from and I gave him those notes. I
Okay,
wanted,
that was my next question.
yeah, I
Okay.
gave him the notes of and the color schemes of each page. I gave him mood boards, like, and everything, but it was like getting it back. So I wanted it to have that kind of synthy, intense, like neon kind of city vibe, because that was, it's kind of
Right.
cool. The whole synthy thing. What is it called? What is like the Matrix called? Like it's very noir, but like a futuristic kind of noir where there's
Yeah.
like neon blast, but it's still dark. It's weird. So I gave him those color schemes, but when I got the pages back, I was kind of like, just like how you felt. It's like I felt it too. It's kind of like, it's a bit garish, but then it was like, oh, actually, okay, it kind of works. Like,
But it worked. It worked for those couple of pages of what was going on. It was
exactly.
like Lady Alchemy was walking it. For those of you who don't know, Lady Alchemy was walking into the club for the first time, and I think it was supposed to be unsettling.
Yeah,
Like
and
like I was a little uncomfortable with what was going on, and I think Lady Alchemy was a little and
yeah, especially in the beginning too, because it was like, and that's the arc that she has, is that she kind of wants to be a star, and this is what I mean, everyone does,
right.
and especially if you're a girl and you're a performer, it's like you want to make it, that's the whole point. So she's kind of coming into this club where she's not really anyone important, and it's like everything is, and the club is really interesting too because it's modeled after the actual club that I used to perform at.
Okay.
And from the outside and the inside, and that beginning demonic performance, there's a lot of real life to this, which is really interesting because people in my scene, there's no politics in it, but I kind of represented what happened in different ways that didn't involve politics in the storyline. But like there are people in my scene when I performed that would like mock Christianity and do these like,
Well, that's the cool thing. Right?
yeah, I mean, I guess if it's like 1960, but
Right.
sure, like
Yeah.
let's pretend it's still edgy. And so I remember rolling my eyes and being like, oh my God, like they think they're being really edgy, being like these like nuns and they're like evil and whatever, blah, 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 or like they're demonic or whatever. And in real life, they were doing that. Meanwhile, I was doing an angel performance. And it's just like, it's so crazy how in the book there's that duality. And I'm like, it's actually true. And the club itself, like, don't get me wrong, I miss it. I love it. But in reality, what, 7 years later after being canceled, I would still be there in purgatory.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, it's still, they're still doing the same thing, and it's still just never ending. Just, it's like Groundhog Days. So it kind of represents purgatory. Like in real life, that's what the club scene is like. And I don't know if people know this scene, but they can definitely, yes, things change and there was a fun time and you're young and whatever. But like to be stuck in that scene year after year, decade after decade, you just kind of become in purgatory. You're just stuck in the club scene.
Yeah, the eternal present. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so that was pretty cool. So you did give the guy color, because that's one thing. I I keep talking. The tone of the color changes all the time, and I thought it was just so. And here I am flipping through the book again, realizing that nobody can see. There's one thing I just wanted to ask, because this page here, back Lady Alchemy goes backstage. This character right here, is this based on a real person?
Did you send me that? Like, make that
Yes,
comment before?
I asked you that a while ago, because there was a believe it or not, a Marvel comic that came out in the late 80s, early 90s called Nevada. That was a burlesque dancer made by the same creator who created Howard the Duck. Steve Gerber was his name. This was a guy who cannot be contained. Like Marvel gave him an inch, he took a yard, and he just made more and more bizarre things, to the point where they actually fired him from his own comic, because he
wow.
But one of the things he did in the pages of Howard the Duck, he had a burlesque dancer named Nevada.
I want to look into that a little bit more. That's really interesting. And you know what? It is interesting because out of that whole page, I love that page. And I gave my artist, Dario, who's really professional. He worked at Dark Horse, and I think he even did something at Image one time.
Okay, so then he definitely knows. Then
he probably knows. If you look him up, Dario Carrasco, he's got like the whole what is those sites where they fandom kind of like pages, and he's written in there. He's professional. He doesn't get involved in any drama or YouTubing stuff. He worked at Dark Horse and all that, did some legit stuff. And I gave him again notes and images and mood boards. And I wanted this backstage shot to really represent, because I had some drama with my former artist, and he didn't take anything I was saying.
Yeah, I didn't bring that up. I didn't know if that was a topic.
He did whatever he wanted to do. And I didn't like his backstage scene because he made it seem like it was like a strip club. Like there's just like only women, and we were just like in like negligees, like backstage. And I was like, why are you like dumbing down what my real life was? My real life, here, let me show you pictures. I have pictures that I sent the artist. We had midgets, little people, whatever you fucking call them nowadays. I worked with them. We had contortionists backstage. They were stretching and getting ready, doing their thing and twisting into weird shapes. We had drag queens. We had non-binary people. I don't know what they wanted to be called, but they were dressing up in costumes. We had all sorts of really wild and crazy characters. And so each one of those figures pretty much like is a picture of like what I sent him of like backstage, except that character you pointed out. That was one of his creations.
As soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, this is, I was like, I bet you this guy's an old comic book fan, because that's a deep cut.
That's so funny. Yeah, that was the one that was like one of his.
Yeah, I wonder if it is, or if it's just in the back of his mind, because if he's been doing comic, if he was doing Dark Horse, he probably knows that is such a deep cut. Back in the 90s, I went to school out in Albuquerque, and believe it or not, I dated a woman who was a burlesque dancer for a little while, so I kind of knew the scene, but this was Albuquerque. This was like a drop in the bucket. But Albuquerque was a way station from people going to New York and LA. So there would always be different troops coming by. So, it was fun, so
yeah,
like I was backstage because of her. And like you said, if it was just like people luxuriating topless in the back, that's not what it was like. It was like a lot of like, hurry up, we got to get the people changing costumes, people bumping into each other, people moving sets around.
Everyone's doing their own thing. I mean, there's one girl that Asian chick who does the hair hang. So she like hangs by her hair and she swings around and does this performance. She's back there putting the thing and knotting her hair, and she has her routine. I had
they had gymnasts that were tying ropes and not making nettings and stuff. Yeah, it was
Yep.
it was crazy.
Everyone's doing their own thing, and I think that backstage shot kind of reflects that. Everyone's kind of hustling and bustling and getting ready, and even the page of me getting ready. And this is what I expressed to Vaughn about my like for the writing was that me getting ready to perform, even to come on your show right now, it's a ritual for me. It's a magical ritual. I'm painting my face. I become someone, like I have the nerdy me. It's like, you should see what I look like before I put the makeup on. And I'm a hot mess. And then it's a ritual that I kind of get into and I become Lady Alchemy. And that's what that page represents. There's the ritual of me getting ready. And then suddenly you flash to everyone else is kind of hustling and bustling around you.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is one of the things I liked about the comic as I was reading it. The Lady Alchemy character, you kind of got tricked a little bit and kind of got like hustled into this. And then you realize like there was a mistake and there was like a redemption arc in this comic. Like you didn't write a Mary Sue. You weren't flawless. You weren't perfect. The Lady Alchemy kind of like, I think got like seduced by all this craziness that was going on. And then you redeemed yourself. And I thought that was so, I'm a sucker for a redemption story. And I don't find too many like in modern comics a redemption story. Everybody's perfect from the beginning.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was hard because, yeah, I mean, I didn't see it that way. Like necessarily, I don't know. Again, I'm not really a writer with this stuff. So I just knew that there needed to be something more dynamic. I didn't know if it was dynamic enough.
It was like a perfect introduction, I thought.
Yeah, I feel like there could be more dynamics with maybe the Vinia, the bad character, or with William, of course. I think was very quick, but there was only so much I could do given the gigantic waste of time I had with the first artist, my first team. So I had to kind of just say, you know what, like it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it was as perfect as I can get it to be. But yeah, I think it represents real life for sure, because again, when we talked about the serpent and like the bad lady Vinia, she's like this like serpent woman. I had to make it make sense. And there's like a lore that kind of goes deep with like the Leviathan type thing, and I explain it kind of in the end with their battle. But in the end, especially on the last page, you can see that like I went through all this shit, and I kind of appreciate Vinia for like teaching me kind of there was a change. Like there was a change that happens in the beginning, and this is how I feel in real life. Like sometimes I think about a decade ago being in Bushwick and being a performer, and how like I used to go out to that theater and I used to perform and I did this and that, and it just seems like such a simple time before all the drama.
Well,
and so that's kind of what it represents, is that like there was things, I was being seduced into something, there was a lot of drama, there was backstabbing going on, and then at the end I'm not the same person.
Well, that's what I don't claim to know a lot about alchemy, but this was the serpent sheds its skin. It was a symbol of rebirth. Without Vinia, Lady Alchemy never would have really been born. You never would have left limbo. Limbo is or purgatory.
Or purgatory, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have stayed and never grow. So that's what I liked about it. It was like you needed, a good hero needs a good villain.
Yeah.
It was like the serpent in the garden. Adam and Eve stayed in ignorance without the serpent in the garden.
Exactly, and that was also the concept of the serpent too, in the Bible, where it's like it presented the tree of knowledge, or the fruit of knowledge, and like start learning and all that. So it was like, even though it was like a bad character, in the end, it was like, I think it's a good lesson, and I wanted lessons for people to take out of it, not just like see how awesome Lady Alchemy is, but I wanted people, the readers, to kind of go, I kind of got something out of that. Like I personally could gain from this kind of concept. And it's basically like even the bad stuff that goes on, or evil people, you can learn and you can like get something positive out of that.
Yeah, I think it would have been a lesser book if Lady Alchemy just came out swinging and beat everybody, and it didn't stumble a little bit. I think that's I think that's like a sign of an amateur writer to just make, this is my character and my character's undefeatable. That's boring.
I agree.
Oh, I see one of the people at War Duke in the chat. He has a great question. Where can I buy this book?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it depends. I have two ways that you can buy the book. I have the Indiegogo, which is on my pinned tweet on my Lady Alchemy. I should put my @ on this thing, but it's
I'll
at
put
Lady.
that in the comments.
Yeah, at Lady Alchemy 33 on Twitter. Or if you just like Google Lady Alchemy and Indiegogo, it should pop up. And so with the Indiegogo, I don't know if people should purchase on there, because even Indiegogo kind of takes a cut, and then also it might take a minute for me to get to you, because I'm going through all the backers and I'm getting through it. But you'd be at the end of the line. Are you a one-person
show? Are you shipping all this by?
Yeah, I'm doing everything myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a pregnant lady shipping your books.
Yeah, I'm physically handling all of it. And so you'll be at the bottom of the end of the line. Although, like, I'm pretty much through the line. I'm getting through it right now.
Yeah, I was backer 46. You wrote a note on.
Oh, you got a note. Yeah. Yeah. The first 100 got a note. Wow, you were first 100. That was way back then. So you'll definitely get it sooner than the first backers got it. But I think that some people like to do the Indiegogo thing because, like, I don't know, does it help me look good as far as like my campaign and all that? So I don't know. It's up to you if you're into doing it that way, or if you just don't give a shit about the Indiegogo thing and you just want the book right away and I get all the money right away. It's on my website, lady-alchemy.com.
Okay, there you go, War Duke. So, is this a one shot? Are you planning on making another comic?
Yeah, I definitely have ideas. Now, this is where I get a little bit like Chris Chaney because this represents real life, right? And so, of course, I made it fantastical and it's fiction.
Right.
But there are things that I use. This is what creative people do. Use kind of things in real life and then transform it into something artistic, and that's what gives you inspiration. Like, I don't want to be inspired. Sorry, go ahead.
Isn't alchemy the art of transformation into
transmutation? That's right. Yeah, so I'm making gold out of my pile of shit.
Yeah,
so,
I don't want to go into details, but I know you had a hard time making this book originally, and I remember you tweeted that, basically like, please guys, give me time. And I remember I said, take all the time you want. That was pretty much my first interaction with you, and you were very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of what it is just taking whatever I'm going through and turning it into a story. And this represents like that first portion of like a major change in my life with the canceling. Like I said, there's no politics in it, but everything kind of shows a transformation in the performing scene. I'm not on the stage anymore by the end of the book. Like, I've ruined that opportunity to be on that stage that I was on and to perform and to be a star. I pretty much like fucked it up with being in that world and with the celebrities and
well, you didn't make that world look too pretty, so I think you made the right choice in the book.
Well, and that's the thing about the demon too, that it's a real demon if you look it up, Nefarious. And it was kind of like, so when I perform, I always viewed it as like casting a spell on the audience. So when you're on stage, everyone, all the masses in the audience, they're giving you their attention. So they're giving attention is energy. Okay. So what am I doing with this energy, this vibration that they're giving me? I have to do something with it, and I'm giving it back. Like, what is that I'm giving it back? So there's like this magical kind of thing, that energy that's being transferred back and forth.
Okay.
And what is my intent with that energy back? I mean, I noticed a lot of people that don't really view it that way. They want to be on the stage for selfish reasons. They just want to go, me. I'm so fabulous. But for me, I was like, I want them to feel something back. It's not just absorbing their energy, me. So that's kind of what it represents when I'm on stage there. And there's this demonic figure that kind of comes about because when Vinya's kind of giving me a new routine to do, it summons this evil demonic entity. And now I didn't want the demon to just be like, demon bad. He's
You're right.
evil. If you look it up,
That would have, yeah, that would have just been lazy and no fun. You know,
right?
yeah.
And so I think that in real life, like demons, and if you look up demonology, they actually are kind of really tempting. And this one
Right.
in
Otherwise, they
particular,
would have no power. If they just
right?
showed up and said demon bad,
It's seductive.
yeah,
And
you won't. Yeah.
and so this one in particular that I looked up, it was making you more creative and giving you that power, that
Okay.
fame, that creativity.
Creativity. Okay.
Yeah, whatever in the book that I put, I did all the research for this.
Yeah.
And it was like there were positive traits that if you want to be a star on a stage, you're kind of like,
Right.
I kind of want
You're not
that.
going to sell your soul to Satan if you're not going to get anything out of it.
Right.
Right.
And so it was like this kind of seductive thing that you're like, no, I can't. Like, I shouldn't do this. I have to not do that. Anyway, I forget. I got pregnancy brain. I forget why I was getting into that. You asked me something.
I must be pregnant too because I can't remember anything.
You asked me something. Was it maybe book 2 or I don't know? Just
I said, do you have a book 2
right.
in the future coming?
So,
and I guess I'll ask this question too. I'll wrap it into one question. Given all your hiccups and problems, and you still came out with a comic that I thought was a good quality comic, do you feel the second issue won't be as difficult to make?
Yeah, I think it will, now that I've done one book and went through crazy drama doing it. I am way more prepared on how to accomplish this. And I want to do it the right way. And I want to get most of it done before I even do the campaign so people aren't waiting 5 years. So it's definitely going to be wrapped up and done properly.
Did you chopped about that, or how long it took to come out?
Yeah. For the most part, the backers are fantastic. I mean, I've only had
the backers probably were the nicest people, but the people who didn't buy your book probably the people who gave you the most hell.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Same thing with Ethan Van Sciver. I backed the Cyberfrog. I've been waiting 2 years, but I know what I'm in for. It's the people who don't even like the guy who are busting his chops about a late book.
Yeah, same with me. It was just everybody had their 2 cents on it, and I'm like, you're not even a backer. I did have like 2 back.
I don't go to that restaurant, and I hate their food. So what do you care?
I don't know. If it wasn't for the backers, it would be easier to just say, fuck it, this thing didn't work out. But I mean, for the sake of like not letting the person that wanted to sabotage this win, for the sake of, I already lost my reputation and my career and everything. This was supposed to be my new thing to revive Lady Alchemy. I'm not going to ruin that one. This was the whole new direction. And then the third thing is the backers being so supportive. I mean, the backers even came in to help me out with my legal defense to deal with this bullshit. And so it's like, I can't just screw them over. Like, I'm getting this done no matter what. It's going to, in the end, some money comes out of my own pocket to get these things shipped out. I don't care. Like, I owe it to you guys. So like, it's getting done.
How cool is it to actually physically have,
I know,
this is your comic in your hand, And I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm working on comic scripts, and I'm letting perfect get in the way of the okay, and
I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. And you know what? You always look at it later on down the road. So like now I look at my performances or things that I did like a decade ago when I thought I was shit and it wasn't perfect and I was fat or whatever. And I look at it, I go, damn, I was good. I go, that was damn good. And I was so insecure about it.
Sometimes like I'll look at something that I wrote a couple of years ago and I'm like, did I write that? That's good.
Yeah.
I don't think I can write that now, and I showed this, so a little, I guess a little bit of time and distance give you some perspective.
And I mean, I think it's a good thing. I think a lot of really good, talented people are a bit insecure like that. Because I don't think there's anything worse than having like a huge ego and just thinking you're fabulous all the time.
So the opposite would be you just throw out your first draft and then
exactly. Some people just
and that's all.
Yeah. And they go, "Oh, it's fabulous. Take it." And it's like, no, I'm a perfectionist, but the problem with that is that you never want to get it out. But I was forced to get this out ASAP, even though I didn't think it was perfect because of all the drama involved with it and how long it took. So I was just kind of just said, get it out, get it out. But I tried to perfect it as much as I could and work back and forth with Vaughn until I was like, okay, this is at least like I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this. Not perfect, but I'm happy. But book 2 is the second phase of what happened. So book 1 has like the stage. It
Okay.
has the performing aspect. It has getting fucked over in the performing aspect. And then it turns into
So is it more of your own life turned into a comic, or is it going to be completely a made up book 2?
it's going to be similar where it's similar but made up.
Okay.
So just like book 1 kind of, it had all those little it checks off all the right things of what happened, but yeah, it's really fantastical. Obviously the things in the book didn't happen the way it looks in the book, but it represents things.
Okay.
And so book 2, I mean, book 1 ends at the bookstore that I end up taking over. And William is a very dear man to me, the old man William. He's actually a real character. There's a lot of real stuff in this
That was
book.
my next question. Is William based on a real person?
Yes.
Okay.
So William, how do I explain him? He's my ex-step-grandfather who passed away.
Oh, okay.
So so he passed in like 2014 or something, and I grew up with him as a grandfather, but he's not blood related to me. My grandmother married him, and I've known him since I was a child, and he was very dear to me. My family is super Croatian, and I kind of got raised a little bit more Americanized. So
my 2 partners at work are Croatian.
What is?
My 2 partners at work are both Croatian.
Oh, really? No way.
Jack and Martin, if they ever watch this.
Jack Barton?
Jack and Martin.
Oh, Jack and Martin. Martina.
They keep trying to get me to go to Croatia on vacation with them.
That is so funny. Well, yeah, now's a better time than in the 90s, so I'd say do it. But so my Bubba is like grandma, and she's like just super foreign. And then I have like Ivan, my grandfather, who's super foreign. It's like we have like a language barrier type thing. It's a cultural barrier. But Bubba married William, who was an American guy, and he worked at IBM, and we lived with them in Westchester at one point when in my early years, like in elementary school. And he was a mathematician. I studied math, and he was a professor at Siena College.
Oh, wow.
I was going to be a math teacher, and he's just very, very dear to me. And he died. And so I wanted him to be in the book, give him a little, like, pay some respect. So he's kind of my, is it Alfred? I always get it. He's my Alfred. And
okay. That's a good, your nerd points just went up. Good one.
Yeah. He's the one that kind of brings me the Mutus Liber, helps me kind of figure some things out and guides me. And so in the end of my book, I'm, that whole performing lifestyle's finished, and I'm in the bookstore, and I'm going to keep William a character in book 2 because he's going to have an influence around the bookstore and stuff like that. And since he worked at IBM and he was really a computer guy, I remember C++ back in the day and all that with William. So I'm going to kind of dust off some of his IBM computers and log online.
Well, now I got to be thinking of him as your grandfather. It'll put a little bit more emotion into it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I wanted. I don't think I got enough of him in book 1.
Well, I figured he was based on somebody that was close to you. I just didn't think it was, your grandfather.
Yeah. And so, and what's really interesting is that William's son actually bought the book and just thought it was really cool that I wrote him in. And I've been interacting with him on Twitter. Oh, so it's crazy. Yeah. And so book 2 will have more of like the online world that I got into after the performing world. And it'll be very virtual and kind of like all the dramas and the demons and the bullshit on the internet, the evils out there. So it represents real life, but it's going to be really like dramatic.
I have to ask you this. When you were talking about as you're performing, it's almost like a spell. Do you read any of H.P. Lovecraft, or are you familiar with H.P. Lovecraft?
I'm familiar, not really, but
Okay.
my friend Jay Williams, he's an illustrator. He's working on a comic book that I'm helping kind of
Oh, cool.
be a part of, and he's talks about that a lot and has a huge influence with him on that. So he's always bringing him up with certain things and like influence of certain characters that he's working on. But yeah, is that something
Yeah,
going
because there's
on?
well, Lovecraft borrowed it from, and I can't remember the original guy, but there was a thing called the King in Yellow. It was a play, and the
Yes.
play itself was a spell. So the actors reading,
Oh.
if you when the play was performed, everybody would go mad. It was like a ritual, a sacrifice
Oh
the
my God,
King
yeah.
in Yellow, and people would go mad and basically murder each other. So it was like the banned play, and I can't remember the original author because there really is a King in Yellow book that it's the whole lore behind it is it's banned and you're never supposed to perform it. And then of course in Lovecraft stories, people perform it and go mad. But I love the whole concept of Lady Alchemy on stage performing a magic ritual through her act, and the
Mhm.
people in the audience are providing the energy. I just think that's such a cool concept. I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually really interesting because Jay has mentioned the King in Yellow and how we want to represent that, and I kind of helped with some alchemical names and that
Cool.
represents the same thing as King in Yellow, but different name because I think he had like a certain name too that was very long and weird. And he,
Yeah.
but I didn't know about that whole story about the play thing. But I mean, I think that just goes to show you that it's a subliminal kind of reality of what performing is. I think performing genuinely is. It's not just like, oh, I made a cool concept that performing is like giving energy and it's a spell. It's like I think it's a archetype that exists like throughout. And I think that's even what those rituals, even in the African ones where they put on a mask and they're
Yep.
dancing around a fire, it's performance and doing well some of the real rituals that I have in the book as well. I do the LVR ritual, the lesser vanishing ritual, the pentagram, where there's, I do the sign of the pentagram and you call upon the archangels and there's like things, those are real rituals and you perform them in real life. You do things with your finger, are visualizing in real life, you do a routine. And
Right.
so, and also you vibrate things. So you say like Yod Hey Vav Hey, you have to vibrate Yod Hey Vav, like you say it a certain way, kind of like church. Church is a
Right.
ritual, it's a
Right.
mass ritual.
Right.
And
It is.
the priest will go, oh, and that's the ritual. And there's something about vibrating those tones into the universe and physically doing stuff that's a spell.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I don't think I'm unique in that concept.
Yeah. I know that a lot of act like I used to think it was pretentious, when I first heard these interviews with like Peter O'Toole and guys who really love the theater. They said they'd love to perform in a small theater. You'd hear people coughing in the audience and they're breathing, and you would speak your lines differently and change the reactions of the people. He said, and it was all one big feedback loop that,
Yeah,
he was basically describing a spell without describing a spell,
yeah.
and, I the older I get and I hear people like yourself describing this, I'm like, yeah, I've never been on stage and performed. I have no talent whatsoever. so
Well,
so
some
but
people don't have talent and they get up on a stage anyway. But yeah,
yeah, I guess I don't have the arrogance to get up on stage.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I find it all fascinating, and again, this when I got the comic, I was like, okay, how good is this going to be? And I I I I read it, I enjoyed it, and then I read it again the second time, and then I immediately sent a message to you because I knew you were having people were being mean to you. We'll leave it at that. And I just wanted to say, like, this was a lot better than I expected. I actually felt bad that I had, that I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was, and I really did. Like, I like the coloring, I like the symbols in the background, but then again, it's two of my things. I'm big into alchemy. A
Mhm.
beginner. I'm not an expert or anything. I haven't transformed anything, but I am fascinated by it. So
Thank
I
you.
just think it was a good job.
Thank you. That really, really means a lot because the first step was just fulfilling and completing it. But the next worry is I hope people like it. And I mean, I think it's good,
Yeah.
but at the same time, there are a lot of like layers to it. So I'm glad you read it again because it is one of those that you can reread because I think you'll get different things out of it, which is what I wanted. I think that's what makes a good book,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you don't just read it once and then it's kind of like a reality show and you go, yeah, I saw it already, I'm done. I think rereading it, and that's what I wanted all those alchemical symbols and kind of deeper, there's deeper thoughts in there when the alchemy kind of stuff starts to happen.
Yeah.
And I hope that that kind of resonates with people and they kind of go, it's kind of deep. I hope so.
Yeah. So what got you into the concept of alchemy in the first place? Was it something you were always fascinated with?
I would say yes. I mean, I remember being like 10 years old and
Oh
being,
wow.
well, not necessarily alchemy itself, but the concept that's similar. I remember being like 10 years old and I was just like, I have siblings and stuff. And I remember like getting really upset at the concept of death and like hanging out with my sister and being like, we're going to die one day. She's going to die one day. And it was
Oh
like
yeah.
depressed me, you know? And then I just remember looking out the window on drives and stuff and just
Not me though. I'm not dying.
that's what my husband says. He's like, I don't want to die.
Yeah.
But I that concept just would bother me. So the concept of eternal life was always interesting to me. The elixir of
How
life.
could it not be though? It's the human ego that I think like creates religion and all of these systems to deal with the fact that the earth is going to go on, the world is going to go on
Yeah,
without us someday.
yeah,
you know,
yeah. And then I also remember just being. I'm from nature kind of area. I've got plenty of like acreage that I grew up with, and being playing in nature and just wondering what the mysteries of the universe are. Like, there's got to be something more going on out there.
and this, you said you were 10.
Yeah, it's
You,
like
it's funny that I've been saying this for years that children are natural philosophers,
yeah,
and it's something to be encouraged. And I think we lose that as we get old. I remember, if I could talk about myself for a second, my
yeah,
friend Danny and I, we must have been 9 or 10 years old, and we were sitting at a tree, and the roots of the tree formed like this little puddle, and we were just playing with sticks in the puddle. And I remember Danny goes, "If there's a God, do you think there's like a God that created God?" And then I said, "If there's a God that created God, then there must be a God that created." And and this was just.
yeah,
I look back at that conversation of two little 9-year-olds with sticks. I'm like, this
yeah,
is philosophy, and
yeah.
then we get older, we forget about stuff like that, and
Well, yeah, and we're
we're
told to
talking
kind of,
football.
yeah, I mean, we're told to kind of. There's also the concept of like losing your like innocence. There's some old story. I think it's in one of these like Grimm books that I have, a leather bound book, children's books, which is going to be exciting to read to my child. But there's one story that involves like having like a golden ball and then like losing that golden ball, and that's like represents like the innocence and
Oh, okay.
and it's like a good thing. I mean, in alchemy, gold
Right.
represents like enlightenment, knowledge, and all that stuff. And so losing that ball, it kind of represents when you grow up, it's just like you put all those thoughts aside and you have to go, okay, now work. Now, I gotta pay taxes. You just gotta do real life normal things. And
Well,
that's
I,
that
I,
ball was
I
gone.
refuse that part, as you could tell by looking around. I,
Yeah. I mean, me too, with the alchemy and stuff. So people think I'm
oh,
kooky.
so we were talking before. We're both from large families. Are you the only performer in your family?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. I have a sibling that's in a band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Musical talent is amazing. I wish I was in a band, and I'm not going to say we were any good. We were the typical bunch of kids got together. Let's form a band and
Yeah.
just smashed instruments and thought that was fun for a while. But
Him and I are more of the artsy ones, and the rest of them are either into the sciences or mechanics and different kind of things. But yeah,
okay,
that one and I are a bit more artsy.
okay, yeah. I always joke that I'm the white sheep of the family because I was the only one to go to college. I was going to be a Roman history professor, and
Nice.
I couldn't deal with the politics of academia, and now I'm a construction worker, and I'm happy.
Good. Yeah, I studied to be a math teacher. So I was going to do the math teaching thing. And I ended up becoming an artist. And then I often think, oh man, maybe I should have just been the teacher, because look what happened to me. And then I go, no, with the way schools are today, I'd be blacklisted in school as well.
No, no. I have a degree in Roman and Greek history, minor in theology, and then
Oh wow.
business education. And I'm the most overeducated construction worker at the airport.
Well, that can come in handy sometimes. I
Yeah, I'm
don't
still,
think.
look at this beard. I'm still paying off student loans.
Yeah. Well, that's like to add to the alchemy thing, like how I got into it. But like as I got older, I was always into math and the arts, and I always had that balance that
Well,
I
that
always really
alchemy,
liked.
isn't alchemy like a marriage of science and art?
Exactly. And spirituality, like all that stuff. There's the inner work and the outer work. The inner work is like the philosophy, the stuff that we're talking about when we were 10 years old, sitting there
Right.
going, like, what's going on? There's got to be more than like what my parents are doing. What
Yeah.
what people are just running around. Like, well, there's got to be more. Like, what's the point of life? That's the inner work, and then or Carl Jung, whatever. And then the outer work is the science, like like making the distillation process. Just different things like that, and physically manipulating the elements of Earth to kind of move and transition into other things, facilitate this perfecting of nature over faster and faster through science. And so Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci,
We're both
uh,
alchemy.
yeah, they were both alchemists and science, math, and artists and stuff like that. So I always looked up to them, and I was like, listen, if those two guys were obsessed with alchemy,
Right.
there's got to be something to it.
Who might argue Isaac Newton, right?
Yeah, like people that wanted to like tell me that like, oh, haha, her alchemy, she thinks alchemy is real. I go, are you smarter than Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci? Because they certainly thought it was real.
I remember a story I learned in college, and it's always stuck with me, that Isaac Newton was told that he was going to go to hell, not because of his alchemy, but because of his science. And so he spent his last couple of years looking through the heavens to find out where hell was, so he would at least know where he was going.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's another quote of that. He's not the first of the scientists, but the last of the magicians. Oh my God, you scared me.
Me? I scared you?
Oh, okay.
Oh,
No,
okay.
my husband like walked into the room and held the sign to like for me to read, and I'm just like,
I thought maybe a camera just turned on. All of a sudden, you saw what I look like. Nobody sits next to me on the subway.
Sometimes he has messages for me, and it's like when you're in a studio and it's like they like writing, and it's just like, excuse me, urgent message.
Oh, I just want to say thank you to Jay Williams. He told me Robert W. Chambers was the author of The King in Yellow. It was driving me nuts that I couldn't remember. Thank you, Jay.
There you go. Jay's in there. Great. Yeah, great that we had this conversation about that. Cool. You'll be excited.
Thank you. Oh, he's a friend of yours, Jay?
Yeah, that's the one that I was saying.
That's the person you were talking about.
Yeah. That he was working on some. He's working on combo, and you know what? We'll get him out and about in the scene too. But he's been working behind the scenes.
Oh, cool.
With something, and there's the Lovecraft stuff is a big inspiration for him, and he was bringing up The King in Yellow, and I'm not familiar with it, but I am now through him a little bit. So
cool.
It's interesting to hear you talk about The King in Yellow because I've heard him talk about it.
Well, yeah. Well, you described it without even reading it, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah. It is cool.
Okay. I gotta go upstairs. I just worked 16 hours, and I just came home, took a shower, and drank some potent coffee. So I don't know if I'll get back to sleep. But I got to go up and have dinner now. But anything you want to close us out? This was so much fun.
I don't think so. I think it was fun as well. Thank you for letting me talk about the book and such kind words about it. I really appreciate it being out there.
Anytime. I was so nervous to talk, and you was so pleasant. This hour just flew by. I had so much fun. All I got to say is where, just one more plug. Where can they pick up Lady Alchemy?
You can do Indiegogo. So you can always Google Lady Alchemy and Indiegogo, or go to my pinned tweet on my @Lady Alchemy 33. 33 is an esoteric number. It's like a magical thing. So Lady Alchemy 33 on Twitter. It's the pinned tweet. There's a link to it if you want, or my website, lady-alchemy.com.
Okay, I'll put description when this posts. It usually takes like 24 hours for everything to update. So it'll post right away, but then the chat and all
Right.
everything will post in about 24 hours. So thank you so much. I had a blast. I'm so excited and happy that you came on. I was so nervous before, and you were so pleasant to talk to. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Now I'm stumbling. All right. We're gonna go now. Thank you, everybody, and pick up, lady. Oh, I just wanted to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Has Indiegogo been good to you? Have you been shadow banned or anything?
I don't know. How can you tell if you're shadow banned?
That's what I was going to ask. I don't know, because I heard some people saying they had no issues, and other people saying that you could look on Google and go right to your comic.
Sometimes that's what I do. I Google Lady Alchemy and Indiegogo.
Okay, so then yes, because other people saying you have to have a direct link. So I'm going to put a direct link in here just in case there's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Martina, for showing up. This was so much fun. Okay. Bye, everybody.